Moving on now to our next speaker, Nuala Calnan from DIT. Nuala has over 20 years' experience in the pharmaceutical industry, including roles with Leo Pharma, with Elan, with Wyeth Biopharma, Pfizer, and the PM Group. Nuala is currently a member of the pharmaceutical regulatory science team at DIT. She has a degree in engineering, a master's in business, and if that's not enough, she's in the middle of working her way through a PhD in regulatory science, researching the integration of excellence, knowledge and culture in delivering enhanced quality outcomes for the patient. You put your hands together, please. Thanks, Nuala. Cheers. I'll help you up on that. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I get the point where you're all hungry and ready for lunch, so we'll try and keep it moving. As you will see, I am newly minted as the PhD, 2 weeks old, 15th of January. And seeing as I was looking at quality and right first time, luckily it went through right first time, no corrections. So it wouldn't have been good to be doing a PhD on quality first and to be sent back into the loop once more. As you can see, I probably embody what John was talking about earlier on in terms of the industry academia collaboration. I spent 20 years working in the industry. As Sean mentioned, I'm an engineer, very practical background. Started out writing code back in the early 90s, automating pharmaceutical plants. So my bent is on practical solutions. So I didn't take lightly putting my money where my mouth was to go into back to school because I'm passionate about this industry, the pharmaceutical industry and the medtech industry and what it brings to Ireland Inc. And in terms of that, I also have a long tenure of sitting around lots and lots of meetings, seeing lots and lots of man hours and man months being wasted in an industry which has a culture of compliance rather than a culture of quality. And for those of you who don't work in the pharmaceutical sector, you might find that strange. You might think that we're, top of the range in terms of our approaches to many things, and we do. We have a wealth of financial resources, a wealth of intellectual resources. John mentioned we've the highest in terms of third level and now fourth level in our sector in the industry, engaged in the industry, but we are not learning from our mistakes, and that is what I spent the past 3.5 years looking at. So without further ado, we're flying blind here, which is an interesting concept, but anyway, it'll keep me on my toes. So the aim of the research was really, as I mentioned, to look at this operational excellence and the integration of the challenges that exist within the complex supply chain. Now, Joe mentioned and showed some slides around how complex our supply chains have become, and they have. In the past 10, 15 years, the pharmaceutical industry has completely changed the way it approaches its supply chain. We have a huge number of CMOs, a much broader network. A lot of our raw materials, our APIs are coming in from China and India, and with that come a lot of risk in the network, and that needs to be managed by the market authorization holder. That's the person who owns the drug in the end of the day. So the research question might seem a little harsh, but I'm an insider, so I can ask the hard questions. How can an industry that is so rich in financial, intellectual, and other resources, technological resources, continue to fail to protect the patient? Now, that may seem hard, but that is the reality. We are increasing our trends on product recalls in the marketplace. We're increasing our trends on compliance actions. So we are releasing product into the market that is defective. Now, that's not good for the patient, and hello, it's not good for the business either. It's costly to pull a product back in from the marketplace, and it potentially can have much greater repercussions in terms of reputation and our dealings with the regulators. Now, this isn't just for Ireland, this is a global industry, and the increasing trends are there, and if anybody wants to go through the 88,000 word thesis, all the data is in there. But perhaps more importantly, one of the questions that I asked was in terms of how did quality and excellence get separated in our industry? But what were they saying in 2003? Sorry, I'm just going to go back there. what were they saying in 2003? And when I started out, this was in 2011. But back in 2003, some of you might have already seen the Wall Street Journal headlines in terms of referring to our industry as, even though we're inventing futuristic new drugs, our manufacturing techniques lag behind those of potato chip and soap makers. That's what they said. And it was true. And indeed, at the time, the FDA commissioner, that's the Food and Drug Administration, the main regulator in the US, said that other industries have managed to bring Six Sigma and Lean and operational excellence. And why are we not doing that within the pharmaceutical industry? And even Jerry Migliaccio, some of you may know him, now retired from Pfizer, he said we were achieving Six Sigma products with Three Sigma processes. Now, how did we do that? We did that by inspecting in the extra Three Sigma, and that's extremely expensive to do. And the number of man hours that go into inspecting in an additional Three Sigma before you let it out the gate is extremely expensive way to do your business. So, what have we had since then? Well, we had a plethora of international guidelines coming from Europe and globally. ICH is a whole suite of guidelines for the industry that have been an innovative, harmonised approach between the industry and the regulators. And one of the key ones is ICH Q10, which was on pharmaceutical quality systems. And it focuses on how do we get this high-quality available medicines. And that's the desired state. High quality. Why? Because the patient deserves it. But available, what does available mean? Available means that we don't have drug shortages. Now, drug shortages is not just going to hit the pocket of the manufacturer. Drug shortages mean that there are patients out there that do not have access to their drugs. And recent reports from both the FDA and the EMA have indicated that over 60% of cases where a drug shortage has occurred has arisen as a result of a manufacturing quality issue arising in the manufacturing facility. That hasn't been dealt with. We're not getting to root cause. So we end up with a problem, a line shuts down, a product is shorted on the marketplace, and patients are put at risk because they can't get their drugs that they're used to. So what are they saying 10 years later? Well, these are two very well-known ladies from the FDA, Janet Woodcock and Margaret Hamburg, the commissioner and the head of CEDAR, the drugs unit there. They're very vocal, and that's why do I not have our colleagues from the Irish Medicines Board, the ARTIS, formerly known as the Irish Medicines Board, they're now the HPRA, Health Products Regulatory Authority. They are extremely well renowned internationally, as John has mentioned. They punch above their weight internationally. They're on all of the leading committees, but we don't see them as yet making statements about excellence and manufacturing excellence. But hopefully that's coming. I'm going in there on the 23rd of February to start a research programme for them to bring operational excellence inside the agency. So let's see if we can get them making some statements. But here's some statements from the FDA, and they're saying there have been too many drug lapses, product quality lapses in the marketplace, and it is a warning sign. And other industries can do it, so why can't we? You saw examples today where Eddie stepped up from Lake Region and gave fantastic examples, and Richard from Rotterfarm, super examples of where, when you apply this, it works. And that's what we want to do with the Pharmaceutical Regulatory Science team, and we've done that on a case study, which I'm going to bring you through. Just to prove that they mean it, the FDA have just launched this month, the 9th of January, a new Office of Pharmaceutical Quality. And this is big business now. They mean to go after quality. They're putting metrics in place. There's been a big pushback from the industry. I'm on the international team with the ISPE on the quality metrics program. We've run a pilot for the FDA. I lead their quality culture team. And so this is happening, and the FDA have opened the doors on their office. And they're going to start putting, whether we like it or not, scores on the doors for facilities to say how good or otherwise we are. So listen up. Being excellent is about fostering companies to adopt those practices that support the desired state of high quality available medicines. This is a little bit about my research, and ultimately my findings worked around the fact that we have pockets of excellence where we have companies that are working on operational excellence. We have other pockets of excellence where companies are working on their corporate culture, and we have other pockets of excellence where people are working on their knowledge management programs. What they're not doing is they're not integrating them, and that's a missed opportunity for the industry, because the common feature here is the mindsets and the behaviours. It's the people who work there and the tacit knowledge that Joe spoke about as well. I wrote an article recently on the 80-20 rule of knowledge. Only 20% of knowledge is codified, explicit, written down in documents. The other 80% resides within the heads of your workforce. And if that walks out the door, then you've lost that to the organisation. You've lost the benefit there. So the main conclusions of the research were that we must maintain a clear line of sight to the patient right throughout this very complex supply chain that we have, always and for everyone in that supply chain. And that's a key element. If it's good for the patient, it's good for the business. Take that as read. The majority of people, I did an analysis of all the vision statements and mission statements and credos and all the rest. Every one of them, of all of the major pharma companies, have something in there about the patient focus and it all being about the patient. Everyone knows that it's about the patient. What happens is we're so busy doing all the activities that we have to do on a day-to-day basis in this very complex array of activities that we're involved in, and we have this knowing-doing gap. So our day-to-day activities are not informed. The decisions that we make, the insights that we gain, are not informed by knowing that we're supposed to be doing it with a patient focus. And finally, we're all conducting risk assessments of everything that moves and everything that doesn't move within the industry. You don't do anything now without doing a risk assessment. But the fact of the matter is that for many within the industry, the patient is an abstraction. It's difficult for them to see the impact of their day-to-day decisions on that patient and therefore on the business. I developed an excellence framework that looks at the top of the framework there is about being excellent. The knowing-doing is bringing your knowledge together and making sure that your actions are informed by your insights gained and your decision-making is informed by the insights within your knowledge. And all of this sits around a learning culture. There's a lot of buzz in the industry about the culture of compliance versus the culture of quality. And ultimately, for me, it comes down to it is a learning culture that you need to instill. And that is that you've got proactive problem solvers and perpetual learners, that no stone is going to be unturned until we get to the root cause of some of these problems. So we did a case study with 3 Irish pharma companies, a year-long case study in 2014, and we brought them through benchmarking, we brought them through focusing on a specific intractable quality problem that they had, and then we developed a measurement tool to measure their outcomes. Why did we do this? Well, we did it because we want to explore the role of operational excellence in terms of delivering enhanced quality. And as you can see, we wanted to benchmark their current performance. That turned into a very fruitful exercise. We focused on quality because quality is key to our business. We can look at yield, we can look at productivity, all very important. But if you can focus on quality, and what we discovered is that through the silos of organizations, they had a huge number of black belt, Six Sigma training, lean specialists, all these guys working who were involved on the operations side, but they weren't actually bringing that game to the table when they were looking at their CAPAs, their deviations, their investigations. So we partnered with St. Gallen University, who've been running for the past 10 or 11 years a big pharmaceutical benchmarking exercise. They have a tool, and you run it through, and you're benchmarked against the last 100 in the group. We can do sectoral analysis then on whether you're an API manufacturer, whether you're a fill finish, whatever it is. We got lots of interesting results. They have a model built around total productive maintenance, total quality management, just in time, and effective effective management systems. And we got all sorts of insights and information. Interestingly, Eddie was talking about the importance of standard work. It is absolutely critical. You can improve nothing until you've standardized it first. You must bring it to a point that it is standardized before you're in a position to actually move forward and improve. And Toyota Production Systems have been doing that for years. So we can see that we're below the three companies. These were major pharma companies, global pharma companies based here in Ireland, were below the median in both visual management and standard work. So these are just some of the insights that we saw. Very poor on employee suggestion schemes. Another great idea there from Eddie on the red, amber and blue cards. Our organisations were very bad at coordinating those, that tacit knowledge from the floor, where somebody who can actually inform you of what needs to happen, and not using that information. Now, we then applied all of this within to an intractable quality problem that they had. And all of you, I'm sure, who have been in any industry will be familiar with sitting down and trying to go through the pain of looking at a deviation or an investigation. And I'm sure even some of you have been in the spin the bottle, what's the problem this time? Is it an act of God? We'll pray for a solution, or what is it that we can apply? Whatever it is, it'll end up, 43% of them in the industry end up as human error, go back to training, not an effective outcome as you might imagine. So each site picked a quality project. And here's some of the results from one of the sites. So this is their 2013 results before we got down there. Now, I was pushing an open door. These people were already at the table. They had a huge operational excellence program running, and they had a quality department that were struggling and drowning in paperwork over here, whose first response when they had a problem was to run back to the office to get the right form. Whereas the OPEX guys, whose first response when they had a problem was to get down on the floor and talk to the operators. So we had two mindsets that needed to be brought together. But you can see, this is serious. This is product A. They had 15 batches rejected in 2013. That's a huge issue in terms of a business cost. Never mind the loss of productivity and all the grey hairs that came out of that. They had 54 discrepancies. 26 of them were assigned to human error, and 3 critical investigations. Now, we're not talking man hours, we're talking man months when it comes to getting through a critical investigation. So by 2014, how did we do? Well, not one batch rejected, 90, now when I say we, this was them, I was only a facilitator to this. We were just getting the tools and the systems thinking in place. 90 batches produced, so an increase in 30%, over 30% in their throughput. Way down on the discrepancies to 27. Only 11 human error. No critical investigations because we introduced a new category of out of trend. They didn't wait until they were out of specification. They were monitoring for out of trend. Out of specification protects the patient. Out of trend protects the business. That's where we need to be putting our interest. So there's the results. Here's something I developed in order to be able to measure those results. And it talks to something that Eddie pointed out earlier on. We called it the LQI, the Leading Quality Index, in order to be able to measure these benefits. But actually it was really a key behavioural indicators. So we targeted those behaviours and we measured the results. And this is a part of this whole intractable thing of how do you measure quality culture. Well, you can't measure culture, but you can target behaviours and you can measure the outcomes from those behaviours. So that was one of the things that we did. And then finally, lots of future work across lots of various areas, both on the quality culture side. As I said, I'm leading up that team that's involved with the FDA, off to Washington in 2 weeks' time on that. On knowledge, we're running a huge international knowledge management conference here in Dublin. I'll show you the slide on that. And on excellence, we're continuing to develop the framework. And just in terms of that excellence, there was a mention of a centre of excellence, and with J&J, the DIT team, who are always very practical, we have a master's in pharmaceutical validation, and we've just been partnered with J&J. We're off to the launch with Sandy Peterson on Thursday in the Ethicon site. 8 of the J&J folks are coming through the part-time masters because they can't hire good validation regulatory staff, so they're growing their own, and we're facilitating doing that with them. So the last slide, this, if anybody's interested, we produced a little pamphlet. I have lots of them here in terms of patient focus, excellence, and some of the things and tools that we used. The next round of, if anybody's interested in getting involved in the next round of research and being one of the companies that goes through the programme, we've got a roadshow on the 17th of February in DIT. And finally, the Knowledge Management Conference in Dublin Castle. We have all of the leading international regulators. Emer Cook, from the head of external affairs from the EMA, the European Medicines Agency. We've got regulators from the PMDA in Japan, from the FDA, from right across the spectrum. And they're all coming to Dublin Castle to talk about the impact of using our knowledge, and not just not managing our knowledge, actually using it to the benefit of the patient. So with that, anybody wants to talk to me at lunchtime, please just give me a shout.